If I asked you to find a failing public school in America, you could probably do it in about 5 seconds.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Right. I mean, honestly, it is practically all we talk about when the subject of education comes up. The whole national conversation is just this constant, relentless drumbeat of systemic breakdowns, dropping test scores, educational crises.
Yeah, it's a very loud narrative.
Exactly. But what if I gave you 1 year to find 1,001 government public schools that are objectively, undeniably, and verifiably succeeding? Like, could you do it?
I mean, well, it is a radically distant assignment. And it requires a completely different analytical lens because finding failure it's easy, right? It's heavily documented, heavily publicized.
So tell me where.
Right. But finding quiet, sustained success, especially in historically under-resourced communities, that requires digging through a massive amount of bureaucratic noise.
Exactly. And today we are looking at a campaign that is attempting to pull off exactly that. So welcome to the deep dive. We have this really fascinating executive summary in front of us. And its entire mission is to just completely flip that prevailing script on its head.
Yeah, it's really ambitious.
It is. It's titled the National Best Academic Practice Models for Black Students Campaign. It's a massive initiative running from August 2026 through August 2027. And rather than putting all their energy into writing, yet another autopsy report on why a failing school died, they're launching this huge data-driven hunt for verified academic success.
Yeah, and to give you the immediate lay of land here, this campaign isn't coming from like a single detached think tank. It's presented by a coalition.
Right, it's a joint effort.
Exactly. You have the Family Empowerment Student Achievement Institute, they're often referred to as FASI, working alongside the Parent Student Union, or PSU, and the National Task Force on Best Academic Practice Models for Black Students. And their overarching strategy is to identify, document, and broadcast the success of 1,001 government public schools over a 12-month period. We are going to explore their exact criteria, their incredibly aggressive monthly goals, and how they are utilizing modern social media infrastructure to just bypass traditional educational gatekeepers entirely.
1,001 schools. I mean, just let the sheer scale of that number sink in for a second.
It's huge.
It really is. Because when you talk about educational success stories, critics usually just write them off as statistical outliers.
Right.
You find one amazing school in a tough neighborhood, and people say, oh, well, they just had a charismatic principal who worked miracles for 2 years.
Right, the hero principal narrative.
Exactly. But 1,001 schools, that is not an anomaly. That is a mountain of empirical evidence.
It establishes a definitive pattern, and the central question this campaign is asking. It's simple in its phrasing, but profound in its implications. They are basically asking, where are Black students succeeding, what educational practices are being used, and what can the nation learn from those examples?
Which really brings us to the psychological pivot at the heart of this entire document. Because I read the executive summary, and I noticed they established a very explicit rule right out of the gate. They state unequivocally that this campaign is not designed to criticize struggling schools.
Yeah, that is a deliberate methodological choice, and honestly, it's a very smart one.
How so?
Well, if you understand how large bureaucratic systems operate, and, a public school district is a massive bureaucracy, that criticism instantly triggers defensiveness.
Oh, for sure. People put their walls up.
Exactly. The moment you walk into a struggling district and tell them they are failing, people retreat into their silos. They become fiercely protective of their budgets. They point fingers at state funding. They blame the parents. They blame the neighborhood.
Right. It just turns into a forensic exercise in excuse-making.
Right. So by removing criticism from the equation entirely, this campaign is attempting to shift the dialogue away from blame and toward undeniable, replicable evidence of achievement.
I want to look at how we normally diagnose these issues, because it reminds me of how we used to approach medicine. For a long time, medical science only studied the disease, right? We waited until a patient was incredibly sick, and then we studied the pathology of what went wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy.
And when you look at the educational landscape, we do the exact same thing. We look at the schools with the lowest reading scores, and we send in high-priced consultants to figure out why the patient is dying.
Right.
But this campaign is fundamentally different. It's like saying, hey, let's go find the exceptionally healthy people. Let's find the people who are running marathons in the exact same environments where others are getting sick, and let's study their training regimen and their diet.
What's fascinating here is that it is a shift from studying pathology to studying vitality. And the source document points out a critical blind spot in our current national discourse. It notes that across the United States right now, there actually are government public schools where Black students and economically disadvantaged students are achieving at incredibly high academic levels, right alongside students of every other racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic background.
But you literally never hear about them.
Rarely. Because, well, the narrative of educational failure is loud. It draws clicks, it fuels political outrage, and frankly, it drives political fundraising for both sides of the aisle.
Oh, absolutely.
The narrative of quiet, consistent, granular academic excellence in unexpected places, that gets buried. It just doesn't serve the dominant narratives.
Right, because it disrupts the established storyline. Think about it. If a public school in an affluent, highly taxed suburb does well, everyone just nods and says, well, obviously.
Yeah.
Look at the local property taxes funding that district.
Right, that's expected.
Yeah. But if a public school in a historically under-resourced area achieves the exact same math scores, the educational establishment tends to just write it off as a fluke. What this coalition is doing is building an undeniable database to prove that success is systemic, not accidental.
Exactly.
But before we get into the heavy data, because the data scraping and logistics required for this are just wild, I want to spend some time on the philosophy driving the people behind this campaign.
Right.
Because, you don't launch a 12-month sprint to find 1,001 schools without a deeply rooted ideology.
You certainly don't. And the executive summary provides a fascinating window into that ideology through a series of visual frameworks. These aren't just like decorative graphics to make the report look nice. They represent the theoretical bedrock of the entire data collection effort.
Right.
We see the logo for the FAMILY Empowerment Student Achievement Institute, and below that, a highly detailed conceptual diagram called the Achievement Pyramid.
So let's pause on the acronym first, because FAMILY stands for Fathers and Mothers Involved in Loving Youth. Right there, just in the naming convention, they are centering the parents. Not the state bureaucracy, not the Federal Department of Education, but the parents as the primary engine of student achievement.
Yeah, that's a very intentional framing.
But the pyramid itself is what really made me stop and reread the page.
Yeah, the achievement pyramid featured in the document is explicitly inspired by the work of Nellie Fuller Jr., specifically his concept of the United Independent Compensatory Code.
Okay, we definitely need to unpack that because United Independent Compensatory Code sounds highly academic. Who is Nellie Fuller Jr. and what exactly is this code? Because if you don't understand that, the rest of this pyramid is going to seem very strange.
It is essential context, yeah. Nellie Fuller Jr. is an author and social theorist who spent decades developing a comprehensive framework for understanding how systemic racism and disadvantage operate on a global scale. His compensatory code is essentially a highly structured, logical system of thought and action designed to help marginalized people, specifically Black people, navigate, compensate for, and ultimately dismantle those systemic disadvantages. Fuller basically argued that disadvantage isn't just some abstract concept. It operates practically across 9 core areas of human activity.
So it's basically a survival and mastery manual for functioning within a system that wasn't built for you.
Precisely. It is a decoding of how power works in society. And you see that directly reflected in the quote at the top of the graphic from JIMMA MAAT, the president and CEO of the Institute out of Youngstown, Ohio.
What does he say?
McWilson states, "For our children and families to effectively compete and achieve success in the 21st century, they must go beyond just schooling and educate themselves in all 11 components of the achievement pyramid."
Wow.
Yeah. And they also anchor the bottom of the graphic with Malcolm X's famous maxim, "Education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today."
And when you actually look at the visual, it's a silhouette of a child physically stepping up a flight of stairs that form this massive pyramid. Each step is labeled. It starts at the very foundation with health, spirit, mind, and body. Then the next step up is knowledge of self, our story. And it is until the third step that we finally see academics and skill acquisitions.
Which is an incredibly revealing structural choice, if you think about it.
How do you mean?
Well, if you look at traditional state-level educational policy, academics is step 1, step 2, and step 3. It is the entirety of the pyramid. But in this framework, academics is positioned as just one functional component of a much broader, holistic system of human development.
I completely agree with the holistic approach, but I have to admit, as I read further up the steps, I got serious whiplash.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, after academics, we have economic empowerment, entertainment, religion, labor, politics, law. And then the top 2 steps are literally sex and war. I'm looking at a campaign document about public school academic metrics, and they have sex and war sitting at the apex of their curriculum pyramid.
Wait, really? How does a campaign focused on reading scores justify integrating those topics?
It is undoubtedly provocative to a traditional educator, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, if you filter it through Nellie Fuller's compensatory code, it makes absolute logical sense.
Okay, walk me through it.
The creators of this campaign, which, by the way, also includes the African World Exploratory University, whose motto is "Located in the Essence of the Divine," they do not view education merely as vocational training to produce compliant workers.
Right.
They view education as the total preparation for survival and sovereignty in a complex, often hostile modern world.
So break that down for me.
Yeah.
How does understanding law or war serve as a passport to the future for, like, a 7th grader? Think about the realities of navigating the 21st century for a student from a marginalized community. If they only know algebra, but they don't understand politics and law, they have no agency over the civic structures that dictate their school funding or their neighborhood zoning.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. Understanding economics and labor is the difference between learning how to be an employee versus learning how to be an owner and build generational wealth. Entertainment and religion are the forces that shape mass cultural narratives and internal personal values. If you don't understand how those mechanisms work, you are easily manipulated by them.
That makes total sense. You were essentially describing civic and media literacy on steroids. But what about the top tiers?
Right. Sex and war. Well, historically and practically, they are the 2 most potent constructive and destructive forces in the human experience. Sex encompasses family planning, interpersonal dynamics, bodily autonomy, and community building.
Okay. And war.
War, in this context, isn't just about military conflict. It is about understanding systemic struggle, power dynamics, conflict resolution, and the historical reality of how resources are conquered and defended. To send a child out into the world with a high school diploma, but zero education on how to navigate complex human relationships or systemic conflict, is to send them out dangerously unequipped.
Wow. That completely recontextualizes the McWilson quote for me. When he says they must go beyond just schooling to actually educate themselves, he is drawing a really hard line. Schooling is just, learning how to pass a state-mandated biology test. Education is understanding how the pharmaceutical industry, healthcare laws, and economic access will dictate your physical survival.
Exactly. The pyramid visualizes that academics is a vital, non-negotiable step. I mean, you literally cannot climb the pyramid without mastering those skills, but it is not the summit of human actualization.
Right.
However, and this is the crucial pivot of this specific deep dive, while their underlying philosophy is this vast, holistic, 11-point survival system, phase 1 of this campaign is laser-focused on that 3rd step, academics.
Right. They are taking this grand, sweeping philosophy of human development and operationalizing it into a highly targeted 12-month tactical mission. They want to find 1,001 schools that are absolutely dominating that academic step.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about the engine of this campaign, because the word success is incredibly squishy. If you ask 5 different people what a successful school looks like, you'll probably get 5 different answers.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like some people think a school is successful if it has a newly renovated STEM lab. Some think it's successful if the graduation rate is high, even if the kids can't actually read. So how is this specific campaign defining success?
Well, they are not playing around with subjective feelings or anecdotal observations. The criteria they have established for identifying these 1,001 government public schools are incredibly rigorous, strictly empirical, and entirely reliant on publicly available, verifiable data.
Oh.
The absolute foundation of their evaluation is the official State Department of Education report cards.
I see the strategy there, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. Standardized testing and state report cards have been heavily criticized for decades.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of sociologists and educators argue that standardized tests don't actually measure a student's intelligence or a school's quality. They just measure the median income of the neighborhood.
Yes, that is a very common critique.
Right. Like the richer the zip code, the higher the test scores, because those kids have private tutors and stable housing and all that.
Yeah.
So isn't building a success campaign on top of potentially flawed, biased government metrics a massive vulnerability?
It's a valid point, but using those specific metrics is actually a brilliant piece of political aikido by this campaign.
Political aikido. I love that.
Yeah.
Using the opponent's momentum against them. How does that work here?
Think about who this campaign is trying to influence. They want to reach state legislators, school boards, and district superintendents. If a grassroots organization builds its own independent metric for success, let's say they decide to measure student happiness or community engagement, the educational establishment will simply dismiss it.
Yeah, they'll say it's not real data.
Exactly. They will say, that's a nice survey, but it's not scientifically valid. But by using the official State Department of Education report cards, the campaign is forcing the establishment to reckon with its own yardstick.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly smart. You can't tell a state superintendent that the data is flawed because it's their own data.
Precisely. If a state classifies a school as failing based on that math, the state owns that failure. But if the state's own strict accountability system shows that a public school in a low-income, heavily minority neighborhood is achieving tremendous academic growth, well, the state has to own that success, too. The campaign is inoculating itself against criticism from the top down. They are essentially saying, we aren't making up these success stories. Your own algorithms produce this.
So what specific telemetry are they pulling from these state report cards? Because it's not just like a single letter grade, right?
No, not at all. They are looking at a matrix of indicators. They pull from state accountability systems, academic achievement results, student growth measures, graduation rates for high schools, attendance data, and school improvement ratings.
That's a lot of data points.
It is, and the executive summary explicitly guarantees that every single school is evaluated using the same transparent review process to promote consistency and fairness.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the statistical weeds here for a minute, because they specifically list both academic achievement results and student growth measures. I think the average person listening to this might assume those are just two different ways of saying the exact same thing, but in educational data, they are fundamentally different concepts, aren't they?
They are entirely different, yes. And the fact that the campaign requires high marks in both is what makes their criteria so robust.
Explain the difference for us.
So academic achievement measures a student's absolute performance at a single fixed point in time. It is a binary threshold. Did the student pass the 8th grade math standard? Yes or no. It is a completely static snapshot.
So achievement is just the raw score on test day.
Correct. Student growth, on the other hand, measures the velocity of a student's learning over time, regardless of their starting point.
Velocity of learning, I like that.
Yeah. To understand the difference, imagine a government public school that takes in a 7th grade student who is currently reading at a 3rd grade level. That student is 4 years behind.
That's a massive deficit.
Exactly. Now, let's say that over the course of 9 months, the school's teachers and reading interventions work incredibly well, and by the end of the year, that student is reading at a 6th grade level.
They gained 3 years of reading comprehension in a single year. That is phenomenal teaching.
It is a massive educational victory. But if you only look at the academic achievement score, that student still technically failed the 7th grade state reading test because they are only at a 6th grade level. So the school looks like a failure on paper.
Oh, I see.
However, if you look at the student growth metric, which is often calculated using value-added models in state databases, that school score would be off the charts. It proves the instruction inside the building is highly effective.
That distinction is everything. If you only measure raw achievement, you are essentially just handing out awards to the wealthiest districts whose kids were already reading before kindergarten. But when you measure growth, you are actually isolating the impact of the school itself. You are proving that the instructional practices inside that building are mathematically accelerating human potential.
Right. And by requiring both and factoring in attendance data, because a school cannot foster growth if the students aren't physically in the building, they're building an airtight, mathematically sound case for what functional educational excellence actually looks like.
It's a really high bar.
It is. Which brings us back to the power of the number 1001. If they successfully verify 1001 schools meeting these combined rigorous metrics, it just destroys the narrative of the statistical outlier. You cannot dismiss 1001 schools operating across 50 different states, dealing with 50 different regulatory environments as a fluke. That establishes a national baseline of competence.
It completely transitions the public conversation from, is it even possible to fix these schools, to, wait, this is already happening in 1,000 places right now. Why aren't we doing what they are doing?
Exactly.
But that realization leads me directly to the logistics of this campaign. And Honestly, this is where my mind was just blown. The administrative and technical mountain they have to climb is staggering. They're giving themselves exactly 12 months,
Yeah.
August 2026 to August 2027.
Oh.
How in the world do you physically execute a data hunt of this magnitude?
The operational tempo outlined in the document is relentless. They have structured this as a highly disciplined monthly sprint. Every single month, without exception, the campaign must identify approximately 84 additional government public schools online that meet their rigorous criteria.
Just stop and think about that math. 84 schools a month. That is almost 3 schools a day, every single day, including Saturdays and Sundays, for a year.
Yeah, it's intense.
And anyone who has ever tried to navigate a state government website knows that this is a technical nightmare. We are talking about 50 different state departments of education. Texas formats their data completely differently than Ohio. Some states might have beautiful, easily searchable API dashboards. Other states probably bury their accountability metrics in 400-page unsearchable PDF files.
Absolutely.
Just the data scraping, normalizing that data, verifying the community demographics, and cross-referencing the growth and achievement metrics. The research hours required are just monumental.
It requires a highly sophisticated data ingestion and analysis pipeline, for sure. And identifying those 84 schools is merely step one of the monthly sprint.
Wait, there's more?
Oh, yeah. Once the schools are identified and verified, the campaign transitions into content production. Every month, they're committed to publishing 30 featured school videos. Alongside that, they will release 30 written school summaries.
30 videos a month. So they're releasing one highly produced, data-rich video every single day.
Exactly. This rhythm is mathematically designed to culminate in a total of 360 highly detailed educational video presentations by August 2027.
You know, when I read that production schedule, my first thought was that this doesn't look like a traditional academic think tank at all.
How do you mean?
Well, if a normal university research center got a grant to study successful schools, they would spend 2 years analyzing the data behind closed doors. Then they would write a dense 200-page PDF, bury it on their website, hold a single panel discussion at a conference, and call it a day.
Right. And the research would have zero impact on the daily lives of actual families.
Exactly. But this coalition is operating like a modern digital media network or a tech startup. They are building a relentless content machine. They clearly understand the modern attention economy. If you drop one video about a successful school, it's a drop in the ocean. People just scroll past it in 3 seconds.
Yeah, it gets lost in the feed.
But if you drop a new, verifiable success story every single day for 365 days, you start to alter the algorithm. You create a sustained wave of momentum. You literally change what local families and policymakers are seeing in their daily feeds.
It is a factory for amplifying success, and it requires military-level logistical discipline. Think about the pipeline they have to maintain. You have data analysts scraping the state repositories, researchers writing the school profiles, scriptwriters translating the data, video editors building the visual presentations, and social media managers optimizing the daily posts.
That's a huge operation.
Yeah. To maintain a 30-video-a-month pace without a drop in quality or accuracy means they have built a highly systematized, repeatable process.
But wait, producing 360 videos of state report card data sounds incredibly dry.
Yes.
I mean, nobody wants to scroll through Instagram and watch a video of a spreadsheet, right? If the goal is to empower a single parent in Youngstown, Ohio, or a local community organizer in Atlanta, how do you prevent this from becoming just another ignored academic lecture? What is the actual anatomy of these videos?
That's a great question, and the executive summary is very prescriptive about the anatomy of this content. They know they have to balance engagement with rigorous accuracy. Each of the 360 video presentations is structurally broken down into 3 distinct sections: school overview, academic performance, and educational practices.
Okay, let's walk through the mechanics of that. I'm assuming the school overview is doing the heavy lifting of setting the context.
Yes, the school overview details the community profile, the total enrollment size, the grade levels, and the specific student demographics.
Which feels like a very deliberate, defensive move.
In what way?
Well, by putting the demographics and community profile right at the front of the video, they are preempting the most common excuse. If a viewer sees a high reading score and thinks, well, that school probably just has rich kids, the video immediately shows them, no, this school has a 75% economically disadvantaged population. It forces the viewer to compare apples to apples right from the start.
Exactly. It grounds the subsequent data in demographic reality. It prevents those immediate dismissals.
Okay, so what's the next section?
Once that context is set, the video transitions to the second part: academic performance. This is where they display the hard telemetry we discussed earlier. They present the reading proficiency, mathematics scores, graduation rates, student growth metrics, attendance, and the state accountability rating. They are essentially putting the state's own official report card directly onto the screen for the viewer.
But showing the numbers only tells you that a school is succeeding. The third part of the video has to be the real goldmine.
It is. The third section is the educational practices. This is where the campaign provides the actionable intelligence. Where the information is publicly available, the videos will detail the specific leadership structures, the student support programs, and the academic interventions being utilized by that successful school.
Meaning they explain the how. Like, are they using a specific phonics curriculum? Do they have a unique peer mentoring program for ninth graders? How are they engaging parents?
Precisely. And this is where the document makes a vital, legally and rhetorically important distinction. It explicitly states that the videos will clearly distinguish between reported official data and the campaign's observations or analysis.
Why is that boundary line so critical?
It protects the core integrity of the project. By drawing a hard line between what the State Department of Education says, the raw numbers, and what the campaign infers their analysis of the school's leadership tactics, they prevent critics from conflating the two.
Oh, I see.
Right. If a local school board member watches the video and fundamentally disagrees with the campaign's theory on why the school is succeeding, that board member still cannot argue with the state data proving that the school is succeeding. It isolates the empirical facts from the pedagogical theories.
So what does this all mean? Let's apply this. What does this mean for the person listening to this deep dive right now? Imagine a parent sitting at home, frustrated with their child's school. How does this video series actually change their reality?
Think about what it's like taking raw telemetry data from an airplane's black box. If you hand a printout of pure code to a passenger, it's completely useless to them. But if you feed that data into a program that creates a simple 3D animation of the flight, suddenly the passenger understands exactly what happened.
That's a great way to put it.
State report cards are the black box data. They are dense, bureaucratic documents filled with acronyms, confusing indices, and convoluted charts. They are notoriously hostile to the average parent.
Well, they're almost designed to be unreadable, honestly.
What these videos do is act as a translation engine. They take locked-away bureaucratic data and translate it into accessible, empowering narratives. It tells a parent not just that a demographically identical school is succeeding, but exactly what interventions they are using to do it. It equips the parent with the specific vocabulary of success.
That is a massive shift in power dynamics. If a video explains that a school achieved massive math growth because they implemented a specific block scheduling tutoring program, that parent now has actionable leverage. They can walk into their own PTA meeting or district office and say, I don't just want things to be better, I want you to implement this specific block scheduling program that is working in a district just like ours. It moves a parent from a position of helpless frustration to a position of informed demand.
But that leverage only exists if the parent actually sees the information. Producing 300 incredibly well-researched, data-rich videos is entirely useless if they just sit on a hard drive in an office in Ohio.
Yeah.
The translation engine requires a distribution network. And this brings us to their digital distribution and social media strategy, which is arguably as critical as the data collection itself.
Right, because they are completely bypassing traditional educational gatekeepers.
Yeah.
They aren't hoping the local newspaper writes an article about their findings, and they aren't waiting for a peer-reviewed academic journal to publish their research 2 years from now.
No, they are building their own direct-to-consumer broadcast network. The educational content will be pushed out across a full spectrum of digital platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, formerly Twitter.
I really want to pause on that specific list of platforms because it shows a deep understanding of audience segmentation. A lot of organizations just blast the exact same video to every platform and hope for the best.
Yeah, which rarely works.
Exactly. But look at this mix. They're utilizing LinkedIn, which is brilliant. LinkedIn is the professional network. That is exactly where the district superintendents, the principals, the policy analysts, and the state-level decision makers are spending their time. Is the top-down audience.
Right.
But simultaneously, they are heavily targeting Facebook and Instagram, which is where the parents, the neighborhood groups, and the grassroots community organizers are communicating. They are attacking the information deficit from the top down and the bottom up at the exact same time.
This raises an important question about the democratization of data. Historically, highly detailed pedagogical research on school effectiveness was locked behind the expensive paywalls of academic databases. Or it was presented at exclusive educational conferences that cost thousands of dollars in travel and registration fees just to attend.
Yeah, completely inaccessible.
The average working parent in a struggling school district had absolutely zero access to that knowledge base. By moving this research out of the ivory tower and formatting it for platforms like YouTube and Instagram, this campaign takes actionable, rigorously vetted data and places it directly into the scrolling feeds of the communities that need it most.
And crucially, it isn't just a fleeting social media campaign. We all know how ephemeral the internet is, right? A video goes viral for a day and then disappears into the void.
Yeah.
But this campaign is building a permanent infrastructure to house this data. The document details the creation of what they call the 1001 School Digital Library.
This library is the permanent anchor of the entire digital strategy. It'll be a fully searchable, dedicated online website containing the compiled data for all 1001 identified government public schools.
So all the data is just there all the time.
Yes, for every single school on that list, a user will be able to search and immediately find the school name, the state, the district, the official school website, the grade levels, the enrollment size, and a comprehensive academic performance summary.
And the downloadable school profiles. I love this detail. They are giving local advocates tangible physical assets. You can literally print out a profile and hand it to someone. But the absolute smartest thing they're doing in this digital library, in my opinion, is including direct links back to the official state report cards.
It is the ultimate display of confidence in their methodology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It essentially says to the public, don't just take our word for it. Here is our analysis, here is the summary, but if you want to check our math, click this link right here and go look at the state's own data for yourself. It makes the entire project practically bulletproof against accusations of bias.
And while their digital strategy is massive, they also understand the necessity of physical grassroots engagement. The campaign outlines plans to distribute this information through community presentations, educational conferences, family workshops, college and university education departments, and through various on-the-ground community organizations.
And then they're hitting every angle.
It is a true hybrid approach. The massive, frictionless scale of digital media combined with localized, face-to-face community organizing.
It really is a full-spectrum assault on the narrative of educational failure. Which brings us to the ultimate endgame of this massive undertaking. They have the underlying compensatory philosophy, they have the rigorous empirical data criteria, they have the grueling monthly production sprint, and they have the multi-platform distribution network. When August 2027 finally rolls around and they have successfully mapped 1001 schools, what is the ripple effect? Like, what are they trying to actually achieve on a national policy level?
Well, the expected outcomes section of the executive summary outlines a deeply ambitious vision for how this mountain of data will shape the future of American education. Their target audience for these outcomes is incredibly broad. They want to reach parents, students, and teachers, but also school boards, civil rights organizations, state legislators, and the national news media.
That's everyone, basically.
Pretty much. The primary macro-level goal is to fundamentally, permanently alter the baseline discussions about educational opportunity, instructional quality, and school improvement.
And there is a historical anchor woven into this section of the document that gives the entire campaign a tremendous amount of gravity. It connects this modern data project to one of the most consequential moments in American legal history.
Yes. The executive summary makes a vital historical connection. It states that this digital library will allow everyone to explore concrete examples of public schools demonstrating strong outcomes for all students, with a specific focus on Black students covered by the Brown v. Board U.S. Supreme Court case of 1954.
Let's take a moment to explore why they explicitly name-drop Brown v. Board of Education, because the implications are profound. That was the landmark 1954 Supreme Court ruling that declared racial segregation in public schools unconstitutional, famously stating that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. But as we know, simply desegregating schools, on paper, ending de jure segregation, did not magically equalize the quality of education or the resources available over the next 70 years.
It absolutely did not. In many ways, segregation simply shifted from legal mandates to geographic and economic realities, often referred to as de facto segregation, which was driven by practices like district redlining and property tax-based school funding.
Yeah, exactly.
The promise of the Brown v. Board decision was never just about the right for children of different races to sit in the same physical building. It was a constitutional guarantee of equal, high-quality educational opportunity.
So by invoking that specific 1954 ruling in a 2026 campaign, they are essentially saying, we are checking the receipts. 70 years later, they are launching a data-driven hunt to find the specific geographic coordinates where the American system is actually delivering on the constitutional promise of Brown v. Board for Black students today.
Exactly. They are mapping the fulfillment of that legal promise. And in doing so, they make another incredibly profound, unifying point about how these successful models operate.
What's that?
The document explicitly states that when public schools prove that Black students and economically disadvantaged students are achieving strong academic outcomes, those exact same schools are providing high-quality learning opportunities for all students.
It pushes back against this toxic zero-sum mentality that so often pollutes educational politics.
It really does. In policy debates, there is often an unspoken and sometimes spoken fear that focusing resources, pedagogical research, or specialized interventions on marginalized students will somehow detract from the education of more advantaged students.
Like pie, if someone gets a bigger slice, there's less for me.
Exactly. But this campaign's data argues the exact opposite. Good educational practices, strong building leadership, highly effective reading interventions, robust student support programs, transparent communication, those are universally beneficial.
Right. If you engineer a school system that can successfully educate a student who walks through the doors with massive systemic disadvantages, you haven't just helped that one student. You have engineered a system that is incredibly robust, deeply resilient, and highly effective for every single student in that building, regardless of their background. Highlighting these models doesn't take away from anyone. It lifts the entire educational ecosystem.
It is the mathematical proof of the concept that a rising tide lifts all boats. And this brings the entire campaign down to its most practical application.
And I want you, the listener, to really think about how this practical application could play out in real life, maybe right in your own neighborhood. Think about your local school board meetings. If you have ever watched one on public access TV or attended one, you know there are often exercises in frustration.
Oh, they can be brutal.
Right. Usually those meetings consist of people arguing over perceived failures, fighting about budget cuts, or endlessly debating abstract national culture war issues that do absolutely nothing to help a third grader learn to read.
Yes, a lot of noise, very little action.
But imagine if this campaign is successful. Imagine a frustrated parent walking up to the microphone at a local school board meeting. But instead of just complaining, they are holding a downloaded profile from the 1001 School Digital Library. They have a verified profile of a government public school 3 towns over, or 1 state away, that has the exact same tax bracket, the exact same demographic makeup, the exact same economic challenges, but is absolutely thriving academically.
That's a powerful image.
And that parent puts that paper on the table and says, this school is achieving 2 years of math growth in a single year. They're using this specific intervention program. Their official state data proves it works. Why aren't we doing this here?
That scenario is the ultimate strategic goal of the entire campaign. It is the tactical definition of continuous improvement. You use verifiable, pure success to raise the local standard and absolutely eliminate the room for excuses.
Or more excuses.
None. When you provide policymakers, and more importantly, parents, with practical, undeniable, state-verified examples of success, you completely change the nature of the negotiation. It shifts the burden of proof entirely. It is no longer on the parents to prove that better education is possible. The burden is now on the district bureaucracy to explain why they refuse to adopt proven best practices.
It forces accountability through positive peer pressure. It strips away the mystery. It's like they figured it out using the same resources, so you have to figure it out too. It is such an empowering, radically forward-looking way to approach a system that so many people feel deeply cynical about. And I think it perfectly encapsulates their entire 12-month strategy. In fact, to bring this deep dive to a close, we have to look at the official motto of the campaign, because it synthesizes this massive logistical undertaking into just 4 short phrases. Find it, verify it, share it, learn from it.
It is brilliant in its operational simplicity. Find It speaks to the relentless monthly hunt, the data scraping to locate those 84 schools every 30 days. Verify It represents the strict, unyielding adherence to official state data and the transparent separation of facts from observation.
Yep, the receipts.
Exactly. Share It is the content machine, the 360 videos, the multi-platform social media blitz, and the permanent 1001 school digital library. And finally, Learn From It is the ultimate policy endgame. It is the parents at the school board meetings, the legislative changes, the continuous systemic improvement of American education.
Find it, verify it, share it, learn from it. It is a complete operational loop. And it brings us right back to the question we started with. If this coalition actually succeeds in documenting 1,001 public schools, achieving excellence against all odds, it proves something massive. It proves that the blueprint for fixing our education system isn't locked away in some expensive elite think tank. It proves we don't have to wait for a magical silver bullet to be invented. The blueprint is already out there. It is already being executed every single day in classrooms across the country by incredibly dedicated teachers and principals.
The models for success already exist. The empirical data exists. The only thing that has been missing is the spotlight and the translation engine to bring that data to the public. And that leaves us with a critical thought to consider. If this campaign does its job, if they successfully curate this vast, undeniable library of proven, replicable educational excellence and put it directly into our social media feeds, well, the excuse of ignorance is permanently gone. The question for you is, once this blueprint for verifiable academic success is placed directly in your hands, what will you do with it?
That is the perfect place to leave it. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the National Best Academic Practice Models for Black Students campaign. Keep learning, keep asking the hard questions, and most importantly, stay curious.